Another hot take here. The easiest way not to get sued as a police officer is to follow the law. If you're not beating people and murdering people and violating people's civil rights, you're a lot less likely to be sued.
Adam, we have some legislative updates in Alabama. There is a bill aimed at restricting unemployment. Adam, are unemployment benefits given out freely and liberally here in the state of Alabama?
You know, it turns out Alabama has one of the strictest unemployment systems in the country. It is not a very generous system compared to many other states. It is, intentionally designed to be difficult to access. And I don't know, maybe this is a hot take, but I think Alabamians who have lost their job should be able to claim the unemployment insurance benefits that they've earned without a lot of unnecessary hurdles. But we have House Bill 29 by Representative Ed Oliver out of Dadeville, which would increase the number of employers that UI participants must contact each week from 3 to 5. Right? So you already have to put in 3 applications a week to maintain your unemployment benefits. And I'll tell you a little bit more here in a sec what those benefits entail. But this bill would make it harder, right? So you're going to have to add 2 more applications per week, 5 total. And I don't think it's, hard to conclude that the point of this bill is to pay out less unemployment insurance. And so it's going to add an administrative burden on people who are already in a bind. And there's little evidence that this is actually going to help people find work, right? I want to turn to some reporting by the Alabama Reflector. I always appreciate the work they do, particularly covering the State House, alabamareflector.com. Worth following them and keep it, especially those of you here in the state. And in their reporting, they talked to Senator Arthur Orr out of Decatur, who talked about how this would, supposedly help with the state's low workforce participation rate, which is currently at 57.8%, and the national rate is 62.5%, right? So less Alabamians are in the workforce compared to many other states in the country, and they think adding additional searches to your unemployment claims is actually going to help that problem. Unemployment benefits in Alabama currently range from $45 to $275 weekly, depending on the person's earnings in a defined period. And just for context, the median household income in Alabama is about $1,193 per week. Right, so you are earning at best, 20% maybe of, the average household income on these unemployment benefits. I will just be honest that the last time I was eligible, I gave up. It was just so convoluted, and there were so many, so much paperwork involved, and the amount of applications, and it was just not worth the hassle to get, $75 or whatever they were going to give me. And that is the point, to make it harder for folks who pay into this system. We all pay into this system. So that bill is out there. I will add that they have made an amendment to the bill, which makes it a little less bad. My buddy Dev at Alabama Arise was able to testify against this legislation, pointing out that in some rural areas, there's just not that many employers, right? Yeah. I mean, there are counties in Alabama where there are just a handful of employers to pick from. And if you're restricted from reapplying for the same job, you're going to run out of jobs to apply to pretty quickly in some areas. I know that doesn't track for everywhere, but certainly in pretty large areas of our state. So, yeah, I don't understand the reasoning behind it unless that it is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Make it harder for people to get the benefits, and presumably that's going to entice people to get in the workforce.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Senator Linda Coleman Madison, a Democrat out of Birmingham, pointed out, I think, what many of us would suggest, which is increasing the workforce participation rate means addressing some of the underlying issues in why they're not participating in the formal workforce in the first place, including transportation, childcare, housing, right, healthcare. All of those issues intersect and explain why some people are not in the quote unquote formal, workforce. So we have that bill going on. I will say that there are some other more positive pro-worker bills that are moving in the Alabama legislature, including paid parental leave for state and education employees, as well as workers' compensation for education employees. So, it's not all bad news. And I think, more and more legislators are hearing from working people, and that really does make a difference. And the last bill that we wanted to highlight was this bill about police immunity. There is a bill, House Bill 202, sponsored by Representative Rex Reynolds out of Huntsville here. And what it would do is expand legal immunity for law enforcement officers. There was a vigorous debate Thursday in the state house. Many members of the Black Caucus in the legislature shared their, very deeply personal and harrowing stories of encounters with the police. The justification for this bill, according to its proponents, is that it is harder to recruit new police officers because everyone is being sued. They claim that it's hard to recruit new talent because people are scared they will be subject to lawsuits. Governor Kay Ivey made a point of incorporating this in her State of the State address. They're calling it Back the Blue legislation. Governor Ivey, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned Monday morning quarterbacking by the courts. Now, again, with another hot take here, but I'm just going to suggest the easiest way not to get sued as a police officer is to follow the law, right? If you're not beating people and murdering people and violating people's civil rights, you're a lot less likely to be sued.
Right. Well, one of the questions that I have about bills like this is, what is the inciting case, right? Because presumably if they're saying, the cops, they're so scared. The cops are so scared about the mean people who want them not to harass citizens, presumably there would be a case that they could point to and say like, see, this guy, he was locked up and he didn't do anything wrong. He was just a really nice guy. And kind of like the child labor stuff that passed last year, the stuff that loosened Alabama's child labor laws. We had Senator Arthur Orr on our program to ask him, have you been informed of a single incident where a child who most people would agree should have been allowed to work after school was not allowed to work after school by the school system? And he said no. And that's what the legislation did. It allowed people to not have to get permission from their schools to work. And so, the obvious question is, has that ever been a problem for even a single person before? He said no. The answer to that was no. So, Adam, have they put forward any specific examples of really nice, good cops just being harassed for no reason?
Yeah, I haven't heard it. I'll put it that way. I have not heard it. There are folks out there following this legislation a lot more closely than me. I will say that. But in full transparency, I have not heard any real strong arguments that support this case, right? We all are aware of police misconduct across the state of Alabama where people have been harmed, people have been killed, people have been beaten, people have had their rights violated. It's often been in a racist and disproportionate way. It typically affects poor and working class people, right? Wealthy folks typically aren't getting the brunt end of this. We just had a police department in Coleman County abolish itself, right? Or be abolished because of its misconduct. It was basically a criminal cartel. And they abolished the whole police department there in Huntsville, Alabama. And it's wild to think that you take all this in, you're aware of all these things, and you think the solution is, well, we need less accountability. We need to make it harder for people to hold law enforcement accountable for actually following the law. And now their argument is always, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to hide. You don't have anything to worry about, right? So why not look at yourself with that same standard, right? If you're following the law, if you're respecting people's civil rights, you don't have to be worried about being sued. And if you are sued, that's what insurance is for. Guess who else has to worry about this? Who works with the public? Teachers. Right? Teachers, you can make this same argument that educators fear being sued by parents or others. And given our climate and the context they're operating in, it's a valid thing. It is a real concern, right? But no one's rushing to give extra immunity to the teachers and to protect them from that. It's very concerning. It's very concerning given the state of policing in this country and in this state in particular, with a really long, bloody, ugly history. And the idea that we need less accountability, we need to make it harder for citizens to exercise their rights and protect their rights in the judicial system, it's very disturbing. And to think that it is an argument based on, well, it's hard to recruit folks right now. Well, maybe the reputation you're earning yourselves is contributing to that difficulty in recruitment. I'm just saying.
The cops are just small beans. Small bean cops. We got to make sure.
So I would just say, make sure you're talking to your lawmakers, stay in touch with them, because they hear from lobbyists, they hear from special interests, they need to hear from regular old working folks like us. So be in touch with them. It's not hard to find them. Do that.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.